Just keep matriculating the ball down the field, boys.
Welcome to the all-encompassing sports podcast.
Oh, he's having it go!
You'll be hearing from all of the biggest newsmakers in sports.
Hello, you play to win the game.
Where you'll hear from all types of guests on all topics.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
What the hell's going on out here?
And now, with sports, Rob.
Hi, welcome to With Sports Rob. I'm Rob. I wanted to start off by saying thanks for sticking with me. I know it's been a little while. I'm trying to put out some content related to the current NBA and NHL landscape, specifically with some baseball and golf stuff mixed in. Kind of the baseball stuff's kind of more of random things about the Yankees and the Mets and our ever-going feud between those two teams, and how my side of that feud never seems to come out on top. And when they do, the Yankee fans just say, "Hey, look at our history. Look at your history. What do you got to say about that?" And they're right, but yeah, it hurts. But yeah, I wanted to say thank you again for sticking with me. I know it's been a couple months. I was dealing with some illnesses, which were very annoying. Took me out of the game for a little bit. Made me a little tired and just kind of groggy and out of it. So thanks again for sticking with me. It was nothing major, just something that I had to deal with, just something that had come up, and it was supposedly a little bug coming around the area, and it lasted longer. Well, it lasted the amount of time that the doctor anticipated, but longer than any kind of natural illness should, aside from something major. But this wasn't major. It was just an annoyance. But yeah, my guest today is Adam Shale. He's a fan of the Devils, who we get into. That may not be as relevant today, owing to their lack of relevancy in the current sports landscape. But it's a fascinating discussion about the constant and current landscape of the Devils, maybe a little bit about where they're headed by extrapolation. But he's also a Yankees fan, so that's relevant. We get into some discussion about the AL East. We have a long discussion about the Yankees and some relevant parts of baseball that are attached to them. Kind of a whip around in the AL in general. And then we get into some discussion about minor league baseball, which Shale is completely passionate about. He sees teams every spring, every summer. I just spoke to him a couple of days ago. He was actually at a game. So good for him. I'm happy for him. And as I mentioned to him on this pod, hopefully I'll be seeing a game with him this summer. We'll see what happens. But that would be great. And I know we're also getting to the fact that we're mutual friends with Andrew Sindel, who's the next guest. You can check out that episode and any other episode of With Sports Rob on the YouTube page. You can find me there. You can search the same on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to look for me. TikTok, I'm not sure how to search for me, but if you put with.sports.rob, you'll find me. I'm sure I'm the only one. Maybe if you just put With Sports Rob. I haven't checked that one. But the other ones are pretty simple. Just With Sports Rob, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Thanks for sticking with me. I hope you enjoy this great discussion about baseball, life, and some hockey. Not really any basketball, but a little bit. We tease that. That's basically what we talk about. What's on the tease. But enjoy this conversation I had with Adam Shale. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Shale, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you, Rob?
Not bad. Thanks for being here. I'm much appreciative of any guest who comes on the show, so thanks a lot for coming by. Well, as I start with everyone, I just wanted to know what got you into sports, what's your fandom story, what are the teams you like, and how'd you get into them?
Well, I grew up playing sports. My dad's a retired phys ed teacher. So I kind of followed it with many sports. I followed in his fandom. He's a Giants, Yankees, Knicks, and Rangers. I've also Giants, Yankees. I switched. I'm a Devils guy, but we are from New Jersey.
Okay.
And I say I'm a Knicks fan, but I haven't really watched the Knicks since Patrick Ewing. So
right. That's fair. Maybe we'll get into some of that in the post game because we've had some past guests kind of get into the Ewing and 80s, 90s Knicks fandom. But yeah, so tell me a little bit how you got into. Obviously, mostly the Devils is mostly a geographical connection. That's how you decided to choose the New Jersey Devils as your hockey team.
Yeah, well, there was a kid in middle school that was a huge Rangers fan, and he was always jacking up the Rangers, and the Rangers won the Cup in '94, and that was a huge thing. But I grew up in Bergen County, and I'm like, I'm not a Nets fan, so I have to have some fandom from New Jersey. So it was the Devils, and the Devils went on a nice streak,
Right.
from like '95 to through the early 2000s, and they were consistently solid. But now they're
Sure.
kind of like
Absolutely. Was it 2003 they won the cup? What was the year they won the cup?
they won '95. That was the first year they won the Cup. They won in 2000, and then they won in '03. They were in the finals in '01, but I think that was one of the two that they lost, because they were also in the Stanley Cup Finals, and I think it was 2012, which was Marty Brodeur's last year. And so there was a good run through middle school and high school.
Sure.
For my fandom. The Devils were winning, the Yankees were winning, the Giants made the Super Bowl in 2000, although they got blown out by the Ravens. So I was living high on the sports fandom hog, if you will, of a lot of championships.
Right, for sure. And I gotta say, I don't know if this is gonna make you feel bad, good, or you're not gonna really care. But I was actually at Game 7 of the 2003 Stanley Cup Finals against the Ducks.
Oh, I'm so jealous, bro.
And I will admit, to start the game, I was rooting for the Ducks, but the energy of the building took over, and I became a Devils fan.
Yes.
But that was a great experience. I'm sure you have. You been? What's your Devils fandom experience? Have you seen them in person? I'm assuming you have.
My first game going to see the Devils was, I guess it was still called Brendan Byrne Arena. Then it changed names like 15 times. Izod Center, Continental Airlines Arena. Now they're in Newark. Newark is beautiful.
Oh,
But-
you're serious?
Well, I let me clarify. The arena in Newark is beautiful.
Okay.
Newark itself, that's a completely different conversation.
So yeah, we're rattling a lot of cities here. We've had a lot of guests kind of talk crap about certain cities and certain. My 2 guests ago was Scott, he's from some close to Charlotte. He lives very close to Charlotte now, and he was basically crapping on the Panthers and their geographical connection to the city. It was just, but yeah, I get it. So yeah, we've kind of gotten into your fandom. So you basically grew up with these fandoms, and you just kind of grew into most of them. You had this particular affinity for the Devils owing to the geographical connection. But most of these fandoms are passed on, and you just kind of grew into them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, locally, we have a lot of professional sports teams. We have 2 football teams, 2 baseball teams, 3 hockey teams. So there's a lot. It's not like living in Pittsburgh or, Boston. Nothing against those cities, but Pittsburgh has, if you're a sports fan, you're in baseball, it's the Pirates. In hockey, it's the Penguins. In football, it's the Steelers. There's no professional basketball, but if you go to Boston, you're a Celtics guy, you're a Pats fan, you're Bruins, and you're Red Sox. Here,
right.
We have a little more variety. So I knew my dad was a Yankees fan and a Giants fan. So that's kind of what I was.
Right, right. I mean, I grew up similarly. I was the Mets. Basically, my dad was a Mets Jet. My dad liked the Jets and the Giants, so I became a Jets fan owing to their underdog nature. But yeah, my dad was more of a baseball fan than anything else. He didn't really care about basketball, so he didn't even like the Knicks in the '90s. Like he didn't care about them. But yeah, so sorry. But yeah, I mean, I didn't get into basketball till a little bit after. I was aware of the Knicks runs and kind of what was happening in the '90s, but my early fandom was with the Mets, and I went to a game. I think my first game was '88 or '87, maybe '89, '88, I think. And I'm happy I was alive for the '86 series and the victory there. I don't remember any of it. I don't even know if my parents watched it or they were just taking care of me. But it's been a lot of heartache for the Mets since I've been born. Aside from that '86 series, which I had no real clue about. I know you've had some more success with the Yankees, but we've kind of gotten a little bit on the Devils here. So let's talk about the current Devils. What do you think about their prospects? Obviously, they're seventh in the Metropolitan this year. They're, I think, 11 points back in both the Metropolitan and the Wild Card. So what do you think about the Devils this year?
I feel like in the past few years they get out to somewhat of a hot start, and then they kind of level off. The Hughes brothers, I think they could be a solid foundation, but I feel like they haven't had a solid goaltender since Brodeur. There's been a lot of switching, inconsistency. They think they're going to bring someone in. In the past few years, they've had a lot of injuries. They're basically, I was looking at the standings just to kind of get it. They're basically a 500 team, which, is better than they've been in the past few years. But I feel like there's no urgency.
Right.
If that makes sense.
For sure.
A few weeks ago, they got blown out by the Islanders 9-0.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some stat that they have to finish like 20 and 3 to get to 99 points, which is projected to be the number to get into the playoffs. So they're not going to make the playoffs this year. I know Tom Fitzgerald is taking on a lot of Tom Fitzgerald. My apologies. Tom Fitzgerald's taking on a lot of heat for his roster moves over the past couple of years. I know he brought in Timo Meyer, but hasn't really done much else. I think they may have made a trade today, if I'm not mistaken. But today is Monday. We're filming this on Monday.
Yeah, I read they traded someone, I think, with the Islanders.
Yep.
But to be honest with you, with the end of football season, I've started to shift a little bit back into hockey. I'm more of a casual hockey and basketball guy, although I will say I watch more hockey than basketball. Unfortunately, the Devils are the third team in the area,
right,
behind the Rangers and the Islanders. So I try to keep up when I can, but 8 million things always end up coming up, and I'm trying to plan out baseball this year. So I haven't been up on my Devils as much as I probably should be or used to be.
Right.
In college and just after.
Right, but obviously, as you said, the goalie situation is something that's going to plague them. That's one of the key positions in hockey. So I can definitely say that that's true. My team is, I'm a Rangers fan, but I've kind of adopted the Golden Knights as my hockey team. I'm kind of like you're more of a casual hockey fan, but I know the Knights have gotten really lucky with goaltending. They had Fleury, then they had Leonard, and then they've had Hill and a couple other guys that have really just kind of stuck and been good in net. So I do realize that you're obviously correct in the fact that you're saying goaltending is a big issue. It's nice they got Jack Hughes, though. Nice pick, I think. But yeah, they're a ways away, and I just from my casual viewing of what I've seen the Devils do, they got to make some changes in terms of turning over the roster. It starts with the top, so we'll see what happens, but. Yeah, we can move on from the Devils. Obviously, you're more interested in baseball. Let's start with something that you've told me about, which I'm fascinated by. You've been to a bunch of minor league stadiums, and you've even been to North Carolina for some spring training minor league games. So give me some of your views and thoughts about minor league baseball and what you've seen.
Well, I am I started my minor league baseball interest in college. Our mutual friend and former podcast guest Andrew Sindel, as you know, is a huge Mets fan. And in college, we were in Binghamton, and the AA affiliate of the Mets is up there. When Andrew and I were in college, they were called the Binghamton Mets, aka the B Mets. Now they are the Rumble Ponies.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
And every year I'd be like, "Hey, who is anyone looking good?" And one of the reasons why I really like minor league baseball is because Andrew and I, got to see Jose Reyes and David Wright play in Binghamton. In recent times, in Rockland County, so that's just over the Hudson River from Westchester. About 10 years ago, they opened up an independent league baseball team called the Rockland Boulders. Now they're the New York Boulders. And Andrew and I would meet up once a year to see them play. But going to the same stadium for me year after year, I wanted to get some more variety. So one of my friends maybe 3 years ago said, "Hey, why don't we see some other teams in the area that are driving distance from the New York City metro area?" So we went to Hartford to see the Yard Goats. We went to Hudson Valley Renegades, a Mets connection, the Brooklyn Cyclones. We went down to Jersey Shore Blue Claws, which they used to be the Lakewood Blue Claws. Somerset Patriots, and then a little farther away, the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs and the Scranton Wilkes-Barre. They used to be the Yankees, but now they're the Rail Riders.
Okay.
And as you pointed out last year in spring break, I was down in North Carolina, Greensboro, Charlotte, Kannapolis, Carolina Mudcats, and I think my favorite AAA stadium, the Durham Bulls.
Okay. Why is it your favorite stadium?
Just this. A lot of these minor league stadiums are set in smaller cities, and you just go to the stadium, and there's not a whole lot like in the area. Charlotte had a very nice stadium. It was right in downtown Charlotte, not far from where the Panthers play. But in Durham, it's a newer stadium, and they have like a whole little area surrounding it. If you've ever been to a Patriots game, they have Patriots Place. It kind of reminded me of that, where there are shops and bars and restaurants in the area, so you could hang out before the game or after the game and get a drink and just hang out in places. So it was really nice. It was really nice ambiance there.
Okay, so I've never been to Gillette, but I have been to, and it's maybe more of a big city, but I've been to Wrigley. There's the whole Wrigleyville kind of experience surrounding Wrigley Stadium, Wrigley Field in Chicago. So I'm assuming something similar. You basically said something similar to that, where there's just kind of bars and shops and things going on just around the stadium.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So have you seen any other prospects that you can remember that have kind of turned into something at the major league level?
Well, last year I intentionally went with a few of my friends to see Giancarlo Stanton do a rehab in Somerset, which was really cool. The year before, they were talking about either he was going to Scranton or Somerset. And I'm like, you know what? Scranton's playing Lehigh. I've not been to Lehigh Valley. Let me go check their stadium out. And the day of, they sent him to Somerset. Yeah. But the prospects, a lot of the games I go to are single A and double A, and unfortunately, a lot of the guys that are playing are traded.
Right.
One guy that Hudson Valley was very high on, this guy named, I think his name was Rock Rizzio. They actually traded him away. I was psyched because I'm like, he's solid. Maybe I'll get to see him in Somerset next year. Traded him away. A little disappointed, but that's such is life in the world of the minor leagues.
Right, for sure. I like the name as well. It's a great sports name. I haven't been to too many. I actually saw a Boulders game with you. I believe there were still the Rockland Boulders at that point. That was a lot of fun. And I've seen when they were the Pawtucket Red Sox. So I think I saw Trot Nixon there. So that's basically the only kind of somewhat brush with greatness I've seen in the minors. I don't remember anyone from the Boulders actually being promoted to the major leagues, but I could be wrong. But yeah, so we've kind of talked a little bit about the clubs that kind of grow these big league clubs, but you mentioned someone, Giancarlo Stanton, obviously a Yankee. You're a Yankee fan. Giancarlo Stanton, notoriously injured, getting older. Obviously, they've got Aaron Judge there. They re-signed Cody Bellinger. How do you feel about the Yankees lineup around Aaron Judge this year?
I think the bigger issue for the Yankees this year is going to be the pitching.
Okay.
I was looking up the injury report on the Yankees, and Volpe's out with the shoulder. Carlos Rodon has an elbow. Clark Schmidt has an elbow. Cam Schlittler, who came out of nowhere last year and was amazing. One of the guys I went to see Giancarlo play in Double A last year. This was earlier on in the year, April or May. He goes, there's this guy coming up named Cam Schlittler. Like, he called it. He said he was like, oh, Cam Schlittler is supposed to be their top pitching prospect. I had never heard of him, and then clearly he was solid even into the playoffs. Cam Schlittler has a back issue, and then Garrett Cole is coming back from Tommy John. So I think one of the biggest issues they're going to have this year is
the rotation,
starting pitching.
Yeah.
Bullpen's always a challenge, but you have Garrett Cole, Rodon, Clark Schmidt, and Cam Schlittler all injured, and we're mid-February.
Yeah, that's definitely not good. So, are you expect? I don't know what's out there right now. I'm assuming you're just kind of expecting the Yankees to kind of piecemeal the rotation at this point for the beginning of the season.
I don't know if there's a whole lot out there. Hopefully they're saying that Garrett Cole is going to come back in May. Hopefully Schlittler's back issue is not serious and he doesn't have a sophomore slump. Chase Hampton is someone they got someone they picked up, and they're saying he may not come back until May or June.
Right. No, I feel your pain. I mean, I don't feel your pain because you've won many more championships than we have, but I feel your pain in terms of seeing injuries affect the rotation and just kind of what happens with that. Yeah. So I guess the question that I'm going to ask next, maybe a sore topic. Well, let me start with this. I think didn't. Oh my God, I just did it. I did the thing that all announcers are afraid of, and I will beep that out, but I'm going to keep that in because that is what announcers are afraid of. I'm getting flush in the face here, but yeah. Cam Schlittler was historically good against the Blue Jays in the last postseason. Is that correct? I think he had one game where he pitched like 7 innings, no hit, no runs, 1 hit, 1 to 2 hits, and like 11 Ks or something.
That was his breakout stellar performance last year. And a lot of people were nervous because he is young, rookie, that the Blue Jays were going to pummel him. And I apologize for the background noise.
No worries.
But he pitched spectacularly against the Blue Jays, and I'm nervous. So obviously, the Blue Jays are in the AL East. They were in the World Series last year.
Right.
I think that's going to be the Yankees' biggest competition in the AL, and if our pitching is suspect, their lineup, I know they lost Bo Bichette to the Mets in the offseason, but they seem to have a pretty complete team last year, and we'll see who steps into Bo Bichette's spot in the lineup. But if the Yankees are having all these starting pitching issues with injuries, I think it could be a repeat of last year, unfortunately.
Right. No, I get that, and I don't mean to go back in time too far because I know last year was a heartbreak as well. But talk to me about maybe the beginning and maybe just some of your thoughts on the heartbreak against the Dodgers in the World Series.
I was kind of surprised that they were beaten down so badly. I thought it was going to be a more competitive series, but I also thought since they got smacked around that they were going to make more moves. You have obviously the judge drops the ball.
Right.
And I thought they were going to shore up a little bit their defense and maybe improve their pitching a little bit. Unfortunately, they seem to just be content with rolling out a very similar roster for the past couple of years, thinking the AL isn't as challenging a league. We don't have to face the Dodgers in the playoffs. It's not as difficult. We've done well. We're making the playoffs every year. I wish they would have been a little more proactive in the pitching market this year.
Sure, and I don't know if you're a betting man, but I do know the Yankees are they're far call from what the Dodgers are, but they're the second favorite to win the World Series this year. I think they're about 12-1. So the Dodgers, I think, are plus 350 or 360 or something. So it's about a 70% difference. But yeah, I mean the Yankees are, I agree with you. I think the Blue Jays will be their stiffest competition, both in the AL East and probably in the AL, but. They're still, and maybe this is the case with the Yankees every year. They're kind of looked at like, oh, they're the Yankees, they'll just get it done. Maybe part of this is just bias from the region, but every year they do seem to have that kind of high ceiling going into the season. People believing that they may have a shot to really make a run at it.
I think with their track record, where they haven't had a losing season in some crazy amount of time. They've been in the playoffs just about every year, if you include like the wild card games and all that. And I think unlike George, Hal seems to be a little more. We're making money. We're we have a winning record every year. We're making it into the playoffs. I feel like, and this is the sentiment of a lot of the Yankee fans, that they don't feel that urgency, and maybe Cashman's led them for almost 30 years, around 30. He's been in the organization for decades. Maybe there needs to be a change there to kind of put him over the top.
So you that was my next thought. Do you believe there should be a change at GM?
That's a bit of a tricky question. I hate calling for someone to lose their job, but if the Yankees are a team that is supposed to, win the World Series every year, and that's their mission,
right?
And we've only seen. In the 2000s, we've only seen 2 championships. Maybe it's time to shake things up a little bit.
I love that. Only 2 championships in the 2000s. The Mets fans would die for that shit. I know the standard. I'm just joking. This is my Mets fandom coming out. I'm bitter. I'm the younger brother. What do you expect?
That's very fair. And look, 2 championships. If you're a fan of a team that hasn't seen the World Series since the '90s, or even earlier, I understand. But there are, I guess, the Yankees have somewhat higher expectations because of all of the World Championships. And look, we're similar age, give or take a couple of years. So I grew up, as I started to get more into sports in the early and mid 90s, the Devils were winning 3 Stanley Cups. The Yankees won in 96, 98, 99, 2000. They were in the World Series in 01 and lost. They were in the World Series in 03, lost. They won the World Series in 09. So I guess I'm kind of spoiled.
I get it. No, and you are. At least you recognize it.
I'm not crazy enough to think I'm not, but
you are where you are. I get it. You have the expectations you have. Yeah. All right. So I guess let me just wrap up with this. So you think the Blue Jays are the biggest competition in the AL? I know you said in the AL East it's the biggest competition. Do you see anything coming from the Central or the West?
The Central, I feel like the Twins are always a scrappy team, but the Yankees have kind of had their number for a long time. The White Sox are in the Central. Who knows with the White Sox? A few years ago, they were the worst team in baseball history. Out West, the Angels. The Mariners, maybe the Mariners, but I haven't seen what they've been doing. They have the big dumper, their catcher, who hit the most home runs by a catcher in MLB history. In the East, based on what Toronto did last year, I think they could be the biggest competition in the East, but Tampa, for some reason, even though they're a lower payroll team, seems to do a very good job of developing players.
Right.
So even though they had somewhat of a down year last year, you can't totally count them out. The Red Sox were a bit down last year as well. The Orioles picked up one of your guys, the polar bear.
Yeah.
We'll see what he does down in Baltimore. AL East, potentially, for the past 10 years, in my opinion, is generally seen as one of the better divisions in Major League Baseball.
Absolutely. And you could see two of the wild card teams come out of that AL East with either the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Orioles, or the Rays. Any one of them could send a team to the wild card based on either past track record or just what they've done over the off season. But I was going to end the Yankees discussion with that, but you just brought up. I know your answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Last year's MVP, Aaron Judge or Cal Raleigh?
I'm a Judge guy.
Okay.
I think Judge, and I say it from this aspect. I think Judge has been more consistent, and I know it's only supposed to be one year, of course. And Cal Raleigh definitely had a crazy year last year, but I think that Judge is just a little more consistent, and I think Cal Raleigh it could be more of an outlier.
Fair. I get that, and I don't know how I feel about the exact nature of who should have won the MVP last year, but yeah, I mean, you did state the fact that Cal Raleigh had the most home runs for a catcher of all time. He also set the record, and I'm just piggybacking on you, but I do want to mention this. He also set the record for most home runs by a switch hitter last year, so not an awful season, but yeah, that was a Mantle record, so that's another Yankee connection. It seems like these Yankees got all these records. Yeah. But yeah, that's about it for our meat of our show. But we've got some extras here. Let's get to the post game. All right, Adam. So, quick question. You're a Giants fan. I've had Sindel on. He's a Jets fan. I know the three of us are connected. We'll just put that out there. But how do you feel about the New York Football Giants prospects for the future with their coaching changes and all the roster turnover they've had?
I hope that with a more seasoned football coach, he has won a Super Bowl. The Ravens were consistently a winning regular season franchise. I think if he can get Jackson Dart to play, I don't know how to say this properly. Jackson Dart likes to freewheel a lot, and I feel like we've seen in the past with a lot of running quarterbacks, whether, for example, RG3, being a running quarterback can get you injured really quickly. And even last year, Lamar Jackson was dealing with some leg issues, I guess. And hopefully, with a more seasoned head coach, he can help him to grow and mature. We'll see what they do in the draft. They're I think top 5 this year in the draft. With Neighbors out with his ACL, I'd like to see them get maybe another wide receiver or wide receiver in free agency, and I hope that with that, I can see them being hopefully at least a 9 or 10 win team next year.
Okay. And another name to mention in that in the wide receiver core, he was obviously kind of an afterthought in the early part of his Giants career, but Wan'Dale Robinson's actually free agent as well, I believe. So that's another potential loss for the Giants. How do you feel about the defense? I don't know if you've got thoughts, because they've got some names, but they haven't really lived up to the potential. I'm assuming you think Harbaugh will unlock them as well?
The Giants lost a good 4 games because their defense couldn't stop anyone in the fourth quarter. The game,
Denver,
the Dallas game in September, Denver, Chicago, just to name 3, and I think there were a few others. Hopefully, with a change in coaching staff, they can bring in, more consistency on the defense. I think Dexter Lawrence, I think it was good to wrap him up, but if you look, unfortunately, you see players, and I'll make a Jets reference here because I know you're a Jets guy, but Muhammad Wilkerson played his tush off, got a contract, and the year after he was kind of
right.
And hopefully, new coaching staff, maybe he has some more motivation in the upcoming season.
Yeah, and I'll make a Jets reference as well. We kind of saw that with Sauce Gardner before he was traded. He got a new contract. He kind of fell to the wayside, and the Williams brothers, Quincy and Quinnen, kind of had drop-offs. I think one of them I'm not sure if both of them got a contract, but both of them had drop-offs after having a couple good seasons. So I get where you're coming from. I like your thought that maybe John Harbaugh is the guy to kind of right the ship. Obviously he thought it was the best, team in this coaching cycle because the Falcons were around. The Dolphins were. I mean, I know maybe the Dolphins are kind of a weird team to even consider, but I've had some guests kind of say maybe they're a good look. But I like the Falcons job. I'm excited for what Stefanski's going to bring to them. But obviously John Harbaugh was the number one coach available in the cycle, aside from maybe Tomlin, who's not supposed to going to be coaching this year. But he chose the Giants, and supposedly they did everything to get him on board. But he did choose them, so that's saying something for their prospects. And I'm gonna frame this just in terms of Jets and Giants, but I think I know the answer. Jets or Giants, who's better positioned for the future?
I think right now, because the Giants got Harbaugh, I think they're a little better positioned. The Jets don't seem to have a quarterback. They brought in Fields. And the head coach with the Jets, he seemed to be a little over his head with all the responsibilities. I know they're giving him another year, but he seemed to be a little overwhelmed. And a lot of people I know Andrew and maybe you as well were bugging out at the Super Bowl this year because you have the Patriots, the arch rival to the Jets, and then Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl this year. The Patriots, they had Gerard Mayo last year, but then Vrabel became available. They said, see ya to Gerard Mayo, and they went, we need to get Vrabel in here, change the culture. Hopefully, the Giants see that with John Harbaugh. I don't know if I'm not saying the Giants are making the Super Bowl next year, but hopefully it's a culture change in the right direction like the Patriots.
Right, and again, I know I think Andrew actually brought this up on the podcast. We both agree that the Giants are better. This was before the Harbaugh news, but just with Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Kemp Scadaboo, the defensive line with the names they have there, it's just kind of a better roster, and specifically the quarterback position just seems to be filled, whereas the Jets always seem to get it wrong at quarterback, and even when they get it right, they can't get it right. Even when they get it right, they still get it wrong. Even when we see guys like Sam Darnold be successful elsewhere, so. I would agree with. Yeah, it sounds like you're saying the Giants are pretty well positioned for the future and probably much better than the Jets. So I would have to agree with you on that one. But yeah, I just want to get into some personal, interesting stories. Maybe any thoughts on the Olympics. But I know you're a bit of a skier. Just tell me some thoughts about skiing. What drew you to it, and then maybe thoughts on maybe anything you've seen from the professional or more better amateur type skiers out there.
Last night I was watching the women's biathlon.
Right.
That's cross-country skiing, and then they stop to shoot targets. That's crazy. I give them a lot of credit because that's a lot of cardio. Then you have to stop, aim, and shoot 5 targets. So I give them a lot of credit. I'm a skier because, once again, family comes into play. My dad skied when he was at SUNY Cortland at a small ski resort in central New York called Greek Peak. And in the past 10 years or so, I grew up skiing. I learned to ski on a small hill in New Jersey where a lot of people learn to ski. The name is slipping me right now, but as I'm talking, hopefully it'll come back to me. One of the big downsides that I see now in the ski world is there are 2 big passes in the ski world. There's the Epic Pass and the Icon Pass.
Okay.
And these 2 companies are buying up all these resorts. And they're like becoming these huge conglomerates. And the equipment is already expensive enough. And now the tickets, if you don't buy an Epic Pass or an Icon Pass to go to a Hunter Mountain, is over $100 on the weekend.
Wow.
And I feel like that's kind of pricing people out. And they call it the Indie Pass. It's all these smaller independent places, but even some of the independent places are charging $100 for a day going skiing if you don't have the Indie Pass. There's a place outside of Scranton called Montage Mountain. They do a lot of deals. It's like $50 to go skiing Monday to Wednesday. They do college days, so they're trying to hook people in. But I think one of the biggest issues is in the skiing world is the price of tickets, and I think it's pricing people out, unfortunately.
Okay. And these Icon and Epic Pass, are these the same ones that started like in Vail in Utah, or is this a New York centric thing? Okay.
Oh no, they're all over the country. The Epic and Icon started out west, and they've moved east, picking up places in New York. Like Hunter Mountain is on the Epic Pass. Vermont has a few places on Epic. The Vermont has a few places on Icon, but if you want to get even if you want to get a full season pass with Epic, if you buy early, the full pass to get anywhere is like $700.
Oh wow.
And the longer you wait, like right before the season, it goes to over 1,000.
Oh my God! Wow, that's
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a skier, but that does not sound like an easy proposition for skiers to make that kind of to shell out that kind of cash just to be skiing. Well, it depends. I guess if you're skiing every day but no one does that. If you're just going a couple weekends or many weekends, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good wrap up spot. I got one last question for you. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. Do you see a lockout or a labor stoppage in MLB's future?
I think it's almost a certainty.
Okay.
I think, and this may be the sour Yankees fan in me, but I think the Dodgers have a lot to do with that. If you look how they set up Shohei Ohtani's contract and many of the other contracts where they're pulling the Bobby Bonilla move. I know I'm trying to make like our youth references here, but the Wilpons deferred Bobby Bonilla, so like July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day. He gets paid like $1.3 million every year. The Dodgers gave Shohei Ohtani like $700 million, but they're only paying him $2 million a year for his 10-year contract, leaving $680 million deferred to after he retires. I think smaller market teams, the Twins, the Pirates, Kansas City, I think these smaller market owners can't really compete with the likes of the Dodgers, the Yankees to a somewhat lesser extent, the Mets with Uncle Steve. They can't compete, and I feel like the owners, especially the owners of the smaller market clubs, are like, this is unsustainable. We have to change this. We're gonna lock everyone out.
Sure, I could definitely agree with that. I saw an interview with Manny Machado today, again Monday, where he said, I love what the Dodgers are doing. Obviously, the players are going to love it because they want to see that push for more money towards the players' salaries. You've kind of mentioned the fact that the small market teams can't compete with the Dodgers, but do you see any maybe this won't happen because of the owner's influence, but do you see a need or would you have some kind of backing for a salary floor? Maybe not an incredibly high salary floor, but some kind of salary floor to force these Pirates that aren't spending like any money, maybe the Tigers who just spent some money but have been kind of cheap in the past. Do you see any reason to have a salary floor?
Well, I think you look at another team that you mentioned, the Pirates. I know the Tigers spent a little bit of money, but you look at a team like I guess they're the Miami Marlins, even though I'm going to call them the Florida Marlins. They won two World Series, and then after both of their World Series, they went fire sale. Everyone's got to go. So I think if it's done in a way that I think it could be a good thing. I don't think there's ever going to be a salary cap.
Interesting.
I can't see that. I don't think the players would go for that.
Okay. Yeah. I was just under the impression that we would get a salary cap with this new negotiation. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't know. I guess the players have enough influence to do that, you think?
I think of all, in the four major sports, the MLB Players Union is the strongest. I can't see them going for a salary cap.
Okay.
Now, you may be right, and this could be the sticking point for the negotiations in the year to come. That's something I hadn't considered, because let's say since the strike in 94. That's been roughly 30 years or whatever. The 94, I guess it was a strike.
Yeah.
The players union has been very resistant to a salary cap. And I think they probably still are resistant to a salary cap because they see all the money Manny Machado got. They see
Soto.
Shohei, Juan Soto, all that money. I can't see a reason why the players would want it. However, if there's no baseball, who knows after a season's been tossed away, their tune very viably could change.
And I got to say, obviously, that would be a disaster. We saw what happened after 94. I mean, baseball was never, it kind of lost popularity even at that point, but it really lost popularity after 94. If baseball's kind of gained back some popularity through all these rule changes with the pitch clock and the mound visits and all this stuff to kind of speed up the pace of play. And I think a labor stoppage or strike or whatever would definitely cause a loss of interest and loss of casual fans of baseball in this country.
I would 100% agree with you on that. I think they've brought some momentum back with a lot of these rule changes. And to our earlier conversation, one interesting thing I like about the minor league is they test out a lot of these new strategies in the minor leagues or these new rule changes. And one rule change I found very interesting was the ball and strike challenge. I saw it in play in Charlotte. A batter got punched out on a 3-2 count. 3-2 count, punched out, strike three. All he did was this. Tapped his head. He thought it was a ball. Review took under 30 seconds. They showed it up on the big board. It was low and outside. He got first base. A run came in.
Okay.
So I think a lot, to your point, a lot of these rule changes, have sped the game up. They've looked at what other sports have done to kind of expedite a lot of things, condense the games. The games aren't 5 hours. They're a little more manageable. And I agree, after a year of no baseball, I feel like you'd lose, I agree with you, you'd lose a lot of the casual fans.
Yeah, well, with that point about the automated balls and strike system, which challenges are coming to the major leagues this year, let's wrap up the conversation. That's a great way to put a bow on this. Adam, thanks for being here. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome, Rob. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Let's go to a Boulders game this year.
I'll be there. Well, I'm not gonna. I'll be there. So let's do that. All right, Adam. Thanks.
You're welcome.